Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Need to Nerd podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co host, a man who knows the way, Wes Singleton.
The way is west. Go west.
Ooh. Ooh. Man. Just laying down facts now. Like we're just saying that is the way.
Well, it also has no bearing in the Star Wars universe because West hasn't even been invented yet on Earth.
Sure.
When this all happens.
Do we know that that's true? Like, how long is a long time ago?
A long time ago.
Right, but 40 years is a long time ago.
Okay, let me put it this way. We know that a different galaxy is much farther than two fars away.
Sure.
So with using one long, I'm going to assume half as many agos as there is aways.
Okay. We got real here. So today...
It's quantifiable that way.
Today is the first time that we are dedicating an episode of the Need to Nerd podcast to a piece of Star Wars content. West, did you know I like Star Wars?
I just know that this episode is brought to all of y'all by the letter T for TIE Fighter. Or X for X-Wing, or really any letter. Actually, I'm pretty sure we could do a Star Wars ship spelling segment if we wanted to do about Star Wars.
That's definitely
true. Isn't it crazy this is the first time we're talking about Star Wars as a whole episode? Like, I feel like, and I get that it's because we haven't had any major Star Wars content break as we've been doing this show, but like, it's such a passion of yours.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's like, I don't want to just like jam, like I obviously love Star Wars a ton, right? But I don't just want to jam the content that I love down the listener's throat, right? Like I want to do a wide variety of content.
Oh, I disagree.
Experience new things. Well,
I think that philosophically, we're going to make good content for things we love.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But what I mean by that, though, is like, I also want to experience things too. Like, I can't just,
Sure.
I mean, I could do podcasts about things I love all the time. You know, when Witcher comes out, I want to do an episode on the season 1 of The Witcher and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
we try to be topical.
Yeah, exactly.
But old. Because we feel like we have to do season 1 reviews before new season reviews.
Yes. Well, I mean, to be fair, this podcast, we're recording it on, today's the 30th, right?
Yeah. Everyone will have been able to watch the season 2 of The Mandalorian.
The premiere,
because what else are we doing until November 4th? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's funny.
I can't do anything productive.
I actually told multiple coworkers today about the premiere of season 2. They hadn't watched season 1, and they were going to start. So, you know, if you're listening to this podcast, you haven't watched season 1 of The Mandalorian, I want to tell you why you should as we go into West Sells It.
More content by hours in season 1 and 2 than all the Star Wars movies put together.
What's that?
I just said more Star Wars content in season 1 and 2 than in all of the Star Wars the main series movies put together, right? Like, it's just more hours of content. Which, what could be better? So. It's close, I'm sure. At 40 minutes an episode.
Wait, but there's nine main movies and 2 spin-off movies.
I think it's approaching. It's a lot of Star Wars content. That's the beauty of it. Well, and I just want to actually sell my philosophy of what makes good Star Wars content. All I want to see is the occasional spaceship zoom across the screen. After that, everything else is candy.
Sure. Well, I think that, Wes, one of the things that The Mandalorian does really well for me, that I want to sell the listeners at home, is in a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago, I said that wrong, but I still said it, we have a gunslinger. A young man, when he walks, you hear those from the spurs. It is a Western at heart. It is probably one of the greatest Western adventures that takes place in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago.
One of many.
It is really amazing what they were able to do with this show. If you're listening to this podcast, you haven't watched it, whether you're a fan of Star Wars, whether you're a fan of Westerns, whether you're a fan of adventure, this show can be completely outside of the realm of Star Wars for so many people and really be enjoyed. You can really learn and fall in love with these characters, and this is like in my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time, and it's only, one season and one episode in.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, also, I totally forgot that not all of the episodes are available. That all we've had is season 1 because we're getting it a week at a time.
That's true. They will not have been.
That was so important to Mandalorian. The first season of Mandalorian, right? Think all the way back. First off, it was early 2020, right? Like when we were watching The Mandalorian.
I think that I was at my mom's Christmas party the day that one of the episodes premiered. Yeah. So it ended early 2020.
Sure. Which is still absurd. First off, they're putting out 2 television shows in the same calendar year is pretty incredible.
Sure. To be fair, though, it actually ended December 27th, 2019.
Did it really?
It did.
Okay, I remember watching it in the beginning, but either way, that's, once a year. That's pretty sweet. That's actually kind of how most Star Wars content comes at us these days.
But I do think that,
But the week by week development, and I like this. I love this about television still, that when we only get an episode a week, we talk about it longer and we have better conversations about it.
Yeah, I do prefer consuming my content this way to binge watching. I think it gives me less anxiety, for one. I can fit it into I'm doing this on this day rather than trying to cram
it's
as much in as I can.
Sweet. Today is watch the new episode of the show day. It's Wednesday. Awesome. Great. I get to watch this new thing. Oh, it's Saturday. I get to watch my animes. Awesome. Right?
Right.
I think that that's really important, actually. And I think that I'm going to get a bit cultural in our discussion of TV for a moment, but I think that one thing that has always been important about TV is the discussion of it.
Yeah. I think that's true.
And these days, we have our discussions at a pretty rapid pace, and we switch topics very quickly, especially in an overall feed-based internet sense, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
And Discord now, too, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I've been so waiting to just pop off in our Discord about season 2 already.
Yeah. And the ways that we interact with media when we're talking about an entire season put in front of us at once, right? Either you can have early in the season sort of review style tweets out there, or you basically have to have seen the whole thing to really have a meaningful conversation with another person or know that you're safe in having that conversation with someone else. And so we have that conversation for less time, right? But Game of Thrones for years dominated week in, week out when it was airing. There was a day that was about Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
On the internet.
Can you refresh your browser really quick?
Yeah. What's up?
There we go. I fixed it. Cool. Yeah, I think back to Game of Thrones when I think about this. I don't know. I love times where I can binge watch things, but I definitely prefer this as well. I think that it's safe to say, though, about this content that, if you want a story that is good at telling an episodic tale through individual stories, much older television than what we currently get. I think that the way that this story is told, it harkens back to the past, in a really beautiful, well done way. And
yeah, you get this just from the titles of the episodes, right? They're about one thing.
Yep.
Right. There's one through line. What is our main character basically looking for?
Yeah, I was telling as I was rewatching this with my wife this time, I was like, is this not a two-parter? Is this not a two-parter? And they did such a good job of completing and telling individual stories throughout the season that I think that will probably be a really big focus as we get into spoilers in this episode on how well they did that.
Yeah. Each of these episodes has a super distinct identity and felt like watching a movie, right? Just a short film as opposed to like an episode of a TV show, which is awesome.
With that being said, we are going to get into spoilers now, so if you haven't watched the first season of The Mandalorian, I encourage you to pause the show and come back after you're done, because this one's worth watching, I think, without listening to us spoil it first. I don't know how spoilery this show can be, other than a few key points, but I think that they're key points that you're going to want to enjoy for the first time. So, with that being said, West, I'm ready. I'm ready because I really love this show. I think that one of the things that I love about this show is its ability to make you care about characters really quickly. Like, within the first 5 minutes of this TV show, in Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, you have a pretty clear understanding of who the Mandalorian is, what he's about, and how this show is going to, take place.
Yeah, the fact that they can basically trick our minds into building this long, complicated backstory and history that we don't know anything about for this character, where they're pretty rigid in their ideals and stance and methods, so that we can feel like as early as the end of this episode, we can start to feel what makes TV special, which is a character we know very well, changing episode to episode, changing and growing.
So, our first segment every time we do a review is talking about our favorite storylines. And I can't pick mine, so I'd like to let you go first, so that if you pick one of my top two, I can pick the other one.
Sure. I think there aren't really storylines in this show as much as there are things and how they relate to the main character, right? Different groups of people, different types of things, because it's so singular in its focus, right? It's following this one character through what he's doing, right? You don't see that many scenes, period, where he's off screen.
That's absolutely true. I would say that for me, like, when I think of...
So I want to talk about my favorite relationship.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Over the course of the season, right? Because I think this is about his relationships to different entities and people. And the one I think that's fascinating is how he feels about droids through and through.
Yes, I would definitely include that in like I would say that's a storyline, but I see what you're saying though, where it's like, why does he have this relationship with droids? Like, where does this come from?
Why is it so rigid? Where does it come from? Yeah. Once we know where it comes from, we see that it's open to being changed.
Yeah, it was
right, which is basically what we're looking for at every point in this show. Is are the people and relationships around the Mandalorian enough to get him to change what he would normally do, so that he's making what we hope is the right decision?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if you're a big fan of Star Wars lore, this is something that I noticed in my second time watching the show, is when you see those flashbacks, it's hard for me to pin down exactly, the age of Mando. It's funny, I actually have not gone down the Wikipedia rabbit hole on this show.
Just to learn facts?
Yeah, I'm like, the thing is I don't know if you've ever gone down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, but it can, like,
you can learn everything about everything.
Yeah, you just, like, end up, knowing way too much. But I don't actually know the age of Mando in this. I don't actually even know if it is on the on the wiki. But yeah, when you think about, that first time that you see the droids attacking and his parents putting him down in that cave,
which calls back to Rogue One, by the way.
Because of the
Yeah, the putting your child when you're under attack.
Sure.
In somewhere and hoping that they survive through it. Because I think that like battles are real, like the conquest doesn't really, it happens quick, and then most enforcement galaxy level happens at the space level. So it's kind of in then out, destruction then gone for most of these attacking forces.
Sure. I think that pinning down like I actually heard an interesting point on this, which is that there is probably entire groups of people in the Star Wars universe that, because of the Clone Wars and probably some events following the Clone Wars where people were using those either remnants of those droid armies or just don't trust droids, like they have PTSD or other issues.
Especially any droid that's armed, right?
Right.
Because I think that we spend so much time in Star Wars, the movies, the main series movies, with like these two cute and cuddly droids that like are pretty harmless overall, and we don't see that much going on with battle droids with armed droids until we get around to the prequels, where they're pretty cartoonish and weak by comparison to the power level of the characters we're following.
It's actually an interesting point. I am not positive. I don't know if they're the same droid, but the model of droid in the he goes to get the child. I think that's episode 2. Is actually one of the bounty hunter droids in Empire Strikes Back.
I agree. I think it is.
I don't know if it's the same one, but it is.
No, but it's definitely the same model. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I just think that's one of the things that's kind of interesting about, right? More Star Wars focuses on this transitionary period between like complete control of the Empire or its conquest of the galaxy, right? Basically the Empire era, right? That's where so much of what's focused and a little bit of what happens afterwards in Star Wars. That like we see more Star Wars universe in a time without these supply lines in place, where like having a model and having it be like an out of the box version of that other people would see is like getting rarer and rarer these days, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
And it's called, I feel like it probably writes down what type of droid this is somewhere in the wiki, but it's not worth getting all the way through it.
No, I do think though that that is an interesting storyline in here, in that the universe of Star Wars is so expansive, but in that expansive universe, the worlds were terrorized, completely, destroyed by droids, and thus you probably have entered a period where not only do the people who experience that, but they tell their children and their children's children about it. And we kind of see that here, and it's really interesting. So for me, I have two favorite storylines.
Sure.
The first is the armor. Watching him get his armor, his sigil, all the way till I think it's episode 3, where he saves the child, and those Mandalorians help him. And at the end of that episode, he looks at the jetpack and says, "I need to get me one of those." All the way to the point where by the time at the end of the season, he's finally completing his armor by getting that jetpack. It's really cool, a really cool storyline throughout this, to see him become kind of what I think a lot of people were hoping for we were going to get out of this. I know that
the fully kitted out Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the lore behind the armor, behind the sigil, like all of that was really fun to watch.
And it's a really good symbol or representation of his relationship with the Mandalorian culture overall.
Absolutely. I also think that one of the coolest parts about that storyline is you can know as much as you want about Star Wars lore to enjoy it, and you can know nothing about Star Wars lore to enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah, my dad, who's never watched a single Star Wars television show, only the movies, so really would never have engaged with the Mandalorian plotline. goes to watched it alongside me and enjoyed it perfectly well, while I'm like sitting there like, oh, that's a cool reference, sweet, I love that. I wonder what happened to this thing, how did we get here, oh my god, it's the Dark Blade, that's really cool.
The whole thing, and the kind of their ability to do that in this show was really, really impressive. My second favorite storyline is that of him trying to do the right thing by this kid. Like, he's willing to leave it on a planet where he thinks it'll be happy. He just wants it to be happy.
Yeah.
He doesn't...
And safe.
Yeah, happy and safe. And, like, it's very interesting to see the amount that he's willing to go through, because that he believes, and his guild believes, that is his responsibility.
Yeah.
And, it's a real dedication to a cause that I really appreciated watching it the second time.
I bet they have great parental leave.
I don't know how to respond to that. But
it's funny because never once has any detail like that ever come up in a single Star Wars anything. I have no idea if women's health even exists in Star Wars.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure there's some reference to it somewhere, actually, in one of the novels. Those novels are...
Sure, novels maybe, but like just the nature of television and movies and what shows up on screen, right? Like the on-screen stuff never portrays anything detailed like that.
I think that I did really vibe with just trying to do the right thing by somebody. And so for that reason, like, that storyline was, I don't know, it was really great. I mean, it leads to obviously the whole show. It's almost the entire through line of the first season, but
yeah. Well, and his relationship with this kid develops in some really cool ways as well.
It really does. With that being said, is there, before we get into like favorite episodes or lines, is there anything you would change before we get into like some of our real big favorites?
I don't know. I can never tell if like the things I feel are missing in Star Wars are like necessary to be missing in order to like keep the overall ambiance going, but like it's always odd to me how every time they land at a planet, they land within 20 miles of the right place.
Okay.
I just will never figure out how that happens, because they never talk about how that happens, except when it has really obvious answers, like big cities, right? But like they manage to land on really isolated parts of planets as well.
Sure.
And then there's also just no internet in the galaxy. I don't understand that either.
It's a long time ago,
how does this stuff? I get that. And so like I can never tell if like those like kind of like things that like I end up with these questions at the end of Star Wars stuff of like, okay, were there other cities on the planet, or could this have been communicated in some message style way, but like things I would actually change about the show are pretty minimal. I like almost everything that happens. I think maybe I want an explanation of where the attitude of Mandalorians changed, and maybe we're still getting this, changed from a hereditary culture, right, which it was on Mandalore, right, before they lost their homeworld. And then as time goes on after that, right, and fewer Mandalorians get born, and they're such a warlike people, so many die, right? Who carries their culture forward, and how did it shift to that attitude of foundlings?
Yeah, I also wonder, like, where you go from, where we have, the ancient, and I think we're going to learn more about this again. For those who don't know, the Mandalorian Wars, which are referenced in this show, are actually not technically canon in the way that we have learned about them. While Knights of the Old Republic and the Old Republic video games are still technically, if you look at the Old Republic, it's still being made, content still being made for it. It's not technically part of Disney's canon.
Yeah.
So they are referencing something that is quote unquote legends in the Star Wars lore. And so in that sense, you go from this huge war that caused in Legends caused a civil war between the Jedi Order and the new Sith Order after that, to causing all kinds of other problems. To when you get to the Clone Wars, they have forsaken their warlike ways. I don't really know how to explain it. You have these sects, right? You have these Mandalorians that are
part of the global galaxy, like the galactic economy.
Well, not only that, but like, and I'm talking about the fundamentalist groups.
Yeah, the old
the Death
groups.
Watch.
Yeah.
So you have this group that is more aligned with trying to go back to these warlike ways, and then you have the leader of Mandalore, who, spoiler alert for Clone Wars, dies. And Darth Maul actually takes over that planet. To now we're years in the future, and there's they're getting kids to become foundlings. It's very interesting. And to
what does it mean, like, teaching a culture to people who grew up, who had 4 or 5 years in a different culture before they became part of, right, who are like they're orphans, right? They had another society once, and that's lost to them, but now they're being taught this one, right? How do your cultural practices change, right? This is the way refrain that we hear so often in this series, right, is unfamiliar to any Mandalorian cultural thing we see in other Star Wars television shows.
Absolutely. I do actually have one thing that would change. There's actually an episode of the show that I did not enjoy. There are parts of the episode I enjoy, but I just almost wanted to skip chapter 6 in my rewatch. The Prisoner.
It's a totally different episode of it's an episode of Star Wars out of the script of all of the other Star Wars works. It's not a Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, I think that it just didn't fit into the story the way that I would like it to. I almost wish that they had just done that as episode 2. I don't know. I think that they could have gotten this story in without having it be right before the season finale. But I also didn't like the characters, like the brother and sister. I thought were dumb. Like the whole, I don't know. I just didn't. There were cool parts of the episode, but it was
it was like a weird Mandalorian is such this planet centric focused show, right? Like the only ship we care about is just doesn't do anything in combat, really. It's all about just get boots on the ground and then fight.
Yeah.
That it was weird to have an entire episode in space.
Yeah. I don't know.
With the consequences of space.
I think it also disrupted the pacing of the show.
Yeah.
And for that reason was kind of my problem with it.
Oh, I think that it has all kinds of different challenges. And it is an episode that doesn't mean anything to the rest of the whole, right?
Sure. That's fair. But that's it. That's kind of my only real criticism of this season. I want to talk about favorite lines, favorite episodes, favorite moments. There's so many in this one.
Anything anybody memed about Baby Yoda.
The memes on this show are so good. It's funny. I actually remember the first time watching the first episode of this show, and just those opening scenes, right, where he walks into the cantina, he gets this guy, all the way up until he freezes him in carbonite, and just that's the opening of this show.
Yeah,
it was so good. So it really stuck out to me watching it again, just how much I just appreciated the beginning of this show. But the memes were pretty great. The child sipping on that thing while they're fighting is literally, I laughed at it so hard watching it again. That was really high up there.
I mean, just the child's a fantastic character throughout, because when you free your and this is back to Jim Henson level puppetry, right? Which is that when you free yourself from human nonverbal communication and human verbal communication as well, right? You just get to this purely like the audience projects into the character what they're thinking type of character that's just like passively reacting everything, and like it just gets us because everything he's doing is just like, oh, that's interesting, right? And and like whatever we're feeling, we're putting into the baby, into the child, and just it's reflected back at us. It's really cool.
It's funny. I remember the first time I watched the two scout troopers sitting there with the child in the bag and like their conversation with each other. And I just found it hysterical. Like it is a really humorous moment.
And stormtroopers are like, we don't know anything about those two individuals, but they're a character unto themselves.
Yeah, it's this show does a really good job of humanizing moments and making you care about little things.
Yeah, they reference stormtrooper accuracy a few times in the show, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh yeah, well, it's actually one of the funnier ones is actually in the prisoner episode that I was just talking about, where he just says, I wasn't a stormtrooper, and he was like really mad. That was a funny moment.
Yeah, don't liken me to them.
Yeah, that was a great moment. I think that, looking back, my absolute favorite moment of season 1 is when he gets the first time he walks in with the chest plate. Like it was.
Yeah, it's just so cool.
It was so cool. It was really appreciated, and you could tell that both the writers cared, the actor cared. Like I don't know, they just did a lot of service to fans of Star Wars while creating this new amazing story, and I just really appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree. I think another one of my favorite moments in the entire show is just the whole scene, the whole progression of down that lava flow.
Oh yeah, that's really funny.
I think that I like that a droid piloting something over a lava flow gives us an immediate feeling of being on Mustafar again, which I think is a great underlying tension to have there, right?
Right.
Dark and death dwell here. And then there's so much drama. It goes back and forth so many times. Sacrifices are made. The Mando really tussles with his new relationship with a droid, right? First time ever. That there's a droid he likes.
Right.
But in order for him to get out of the situation, the droid has to sacrifice himself. Is a really fascinating situation.
Did you watch the new episode?
No, I have not yet.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
It is really good, and that's what you've mentioned. Kind of one of my favorite moments of that episode a few times on this episode without knowing it. So I think you'll really enjoy it.
Sweet.
I think that if I had a favorite character in this, by the way. Like not other than Mando or the child, I think that they're
dynamic
pretty
duo.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to have as favorite characters. I really appreciated. I can't remember. I mean, Kara's obviously awesome, but it's actually the other guy. I don't remember his name.
The like mayor-ish dude of the town who gives them the missions and stuff.
No.
Oh.
The guy that was that got his freedom. What is his name? Ugnaught? He is an Ugnaught? Yeah. I actually don't even know if they've ever said his name on. Is it Quill?
Short character that he meets on that barren planet.
Yes, Quill is.
Oh yeah, he's a cool character.
I like. He's got some really good lines. When he says, I think he says, "I have spoken," is one of them. It's like, I want to just say that to my kid now. Like,
yeah, you can't argue with me.
I have spoken. Like, I don't know. He also is interesting where he just wants peace. He wants to just be peaceful, and it's something that I related to as an old man West. I really appreciated that. What about you? Is there a favorite character that you have out of the two main characters?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. Like, in that, like, I appreciate them all. There's not one that I hold up and I'm super excited about it. And if I were, I think it's pretty easily
the Mudhorn Egg. That's a fair favorite character, Wes.
That's definitely what I said. Yep. I'm talking about the former shock trooper.
Yeah,
I forget Kara. Yeah, Kara. She's just totally cool throughout, and the first individual who like holds her own against the Mandalorian we meet in the show.
Yeah, I really appreciated, how, their relationship was built throughout this season, and that moment with the AT-AT, the AT-AT, was, oh my gosh, just one of my favorite moments in Star Wars history. Them taking that on with that village and just kind of seeing that transpire.
And I like it because we never get powered down Star Wars, not fully, not without the opportunity to have the bailout of Force, which we, I guess, kind of have, right? Like, even Baby Yoda represents a little bit of like Deus Ex Machina in terms of like something more powerful can appear, but unreliably, of course, which is the best kind of powerful.
Yeah.
But like it's really scary, right? Like, it's so much harder to take down than I think that we get the vibe because of how easily we see it happen in the movies and television shows, especially the television shows, right? Like, anytime there are two competent Jedi-like characters on screen, right, that sort of stuff just gets mowed down.
Yeah, and the other times it was taken down more by teddy bears, so,
Yeah, although there's something about those Ewoks that we don't like. They fully were playing with home field advantage.
That's definitely true. That AT-AT moment, that AT-AT, it really did.
I think it's the AT-ST for those of you who are sitting at home yelling at us.
Holy crap.
I understand what you're feeling.
Dude, the alcohol is getting to me. I cannot believe I just got that wrong. All of Star Wars fandom, felt that disturbance in the Force as I said the wrong thing. But it is.
I hope not. That'd be a lot of people to be affected.
I think that you underestimate Star Wars fandom and how offended they get.
Sure, but they're not all consuming this media, right?
Oh, that's true. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I do think that that episode specifically said a lot about this season and about the Mandalorian's intentions. And
yeah, I think that it's a great episode, and the fact that like they get through basically the whole time there in one episode is just incredible.
Absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to say before we rate this? I mean, it's short. I think that we didn't really get to talk about that too much, but it's only 8 episodes for the first season.
But I feel like it finishes a story, and apparently it had an episode to spare because we're pretty sure episode 6 didn't actually carry anything.
Sure.
Which I think is impressive. And I think that it can afford to be short here because it's not a very big world we're being presented to for a Star Wars universe story, right? Like, there are like 3-ish planets in question here, really only one. They're like, we end at the same place we start. There's not that many important characters, and it's about this like one through line, which I think is really cool, right? There's not the goal isn't save the universe or save a planet. It's save one individual.
Yeah, it's certainly smaller than save the cheerleader, save the world. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I think that. If I were to give kind of, I'll go first. My final impression. I've now watched this show, I think, exactly 3 times. I watched it by myself and with my wife on the days that it came out.
Yeah.
And then I watched it with my wife again this time, and it is a really fun adventure. I'm really glad that I get to experience it. And, it took Star Wars TV kind of in a new direction that I really appreciated. I'm excited to see if there can be more Star Wars television like this. Because it has a lot for the original trilogy fans, it has a lot for the sequel fans, it has a lot for the prequel fans, it's got a lot for people who grew up with Star Wars, people who were older when Star Wars came out. I think that it has a lot to give, and I don't know, it was a really enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I was thrilled to watch it. I'm stoked to watch another season here. I'm stoked to talk about that other season when it comes to a close.
Cool. Well, if I were to rate this on our scale of 0 to 5 West this season, I would give it a 4.5. I think
No way.
I would. I think that it's almost perfect.
Yeah, tell me about that almost. We've talked a lot about the perfect.
It's just that one episode. I don't know. I don't know why it bugs me so bad to have this a wasted episode. It sucks, right? Because like at the same time you're like, oh man, I want more, but like now I'm also complaining about just this fun story that happened. I think that the problem is that I didn't enjoy that story in particular, and so because of that, it puts a little damper on the season for me.
Sure.
What about you?
I'll match you on 4.5. I think that it is right. I don't know if I've watched anything Star Wars that like meets less than a 4 for me, at least when taken as a whole unit, right? Like maybe individual episodes or seasons of different Star Wars television shows maybe don't quite get there, but as a whole, those shows definitely do.
Yeah.
And mostly I'm just super happy with Star Wars, right? Like, as are you, which is part of the reason why we're here talking about it, sticking our necks out in the Star Wars world. But it definitely gets a 4.5 for how uncontroversial it was that The Mandalorian was good.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that, the show is pretty universally loved, and in a time where, let's be honest, I think Star Wars fandom is pretty fractured in a lot of ways. We can all come together and really enjoy a really good story.
Yeah.
So that is going to do it for this week's episode. It was one that I appreciated, Wes, you jumping on with me on a Friday night to get it in. I'm suffering from some issues with my sinuses still, and it was really cool of you to jump in with me, and I really appreciate it. And I hope the listeners appreciate West as well and his ability to do that. So
yeah, next time I'm just coming over and I'm sticking like an oversized syringe full of water up your nose and seeing if we can make it work out that
just
way.
Clear out the sinuses.
Sure.
Well, thank you everybody so much for listening. If you want to talk about the new season of The Mandalorian, join our Discord. The link is in the show notes. Give us a like, give us a sub here on the YouTube channel. If you're listening anywhere in audio form, thank you so much. Leaving us a review can help us so much. So thank you. West, I'm going to let you go so that you can go enjoy.
Okay, but listeners, I'm only letting you go if it is either after November 3rd or if it is before November 3rd and you live in the United States and are one of the people privileged enough to vote in this country. Please do it.
Yeah, this episode will come out before Election Day, so if you have the ability to go and vote, please do so. I agree. Thank you, everybody, so much, and we'll see you guys all next week with another episode of the Need to Nerd podcast.
Bye.